Well, in a season where the Blues are struggling quite a bit at the NHL level, there are some exciting things happening for Blues prospects. The World Juniors has just concluded with both Adam Jiricek and Luve Harenstam having big tournaments and claiming medals. And then top names like Adam Jiricek and Justin Carbonneau, they're having exciting regular seasons with their respective junior teams as well. And we've got some former first rounders in Dalibor Dvorsky and Otto Stenberg having arrived in St. Louis. So today we're joined by Mike Meyer for a prospects check-in to break all this down. All that and more on this episode of Note News. Welcome into another episode of Note News. We're a St. Louis Blues podcast, bringing you content twice a week, as often as we can. It's John and Alec back with you as always. And today we're joined by a special guest, Mike Meyer. Mike, thanks for coming back on. It's good to see you, and Happy New Year. Hope you've been well.
Yeah, guys, Happy New Year. Always happy to be able to be on here. We were chatting here beforehand, but, everything's going well. Just staying busy, just enjoying this nice, unseasonably warm weather here in St. Louis. John, I know you said you're living down south here now, so you don't get to be able to enjoy this, but it's like mid 60s here right now in early January, which is just bonkers.
It is nice and unexpected. Sort of makes you wonder. Maybe there's some worse weather coming, but hopefully not.
Yeah.
Mike, where can everyone find you, and what have you been up to, sort of in the hockey sphere lately?
So you can be able to find all of my Blues coverage actually here, like for the NHL here over at STL Sports Central. There's some great folks on over there. If you're familiar here with it, we've got Randy Carricker, Bernie Michaelis here, among a number here of folks that we can be able to join talking here. Not just St. Louis Blues, but we're talking St. Louis Cardinals, Mizzou, Illini, anything that's surrounding St. Louis sports, we've got it covered. If you're looking for exclusively prospect coverage, here over on Substack, over at Blue Notes Rising. I'm working here just as a little sneak peek on a little bit of a passion project. It's my first ever full-blown rankings here of all of the prospects, where I think that they're ranked, and what tier and projections that they have in there. So it's taken a little bit of an undertaking because there's quite a few prospects to look here at, but I'm hoping that I'm going to have this release here in the next couple of days.
That's awesome. I will definitely be keeping my eye out for that. I can't wait to see that. Yeah, everyone definitely go subscribe to that Substack. It's a great one. If you don't like clutter in your inbox, it's not over the top. But it's great content as well. So it's well worth a subscription. And STL Sports Central, they do great work as well. If you haven't already, we'd appreciate if you would subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. You can like this video, follow, rate, review on Spotify and Apple, and then we're also on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. So today we're going to be focusing on Blues prospects and young players, both at the NHL level, but also some prospects like Jiricek, Carbonneau, and others. And I think we're going to start here with the most exciting sort of thing happening in prospect hockey right now that just wrapped up yesterday on January 5th. It's the World Juniors. So the 2026 World Junior Championships concluded yesterday, with Team Sweden claiming gold over Team Czechia. And then Team Canada wins the bronze medal there at the end. Thoughts on the tournament as a whole, gentlemen? Like, Alec, what did you make of this tournament? Any surprises? Yeah, let me get your thoughts, Alec.
It was a really, I mean, the World Juniors is one of the best tournaments in sports that I watch. It's one of the it's such a treat every year to see these super young U20 hockey teams going at it, and just the level of passion to compete for their countries on that early of a stage is such a unique blend. So personal bias, it's a favorite of mine, and this year was no different. I'm typically in international competition, I think Sweden has kind of become my following. There's been a lot of Swedish Blues over the years, and a lot of just fun players in NHL history that have come from Sweden that I've liked watching. So, and I think they have the best jerseys, which is a big part of it. But so it was really fun to follow this year. I mean, seeing Otto's brother Ivar Stenberg in international hockey, and watching just the top talent go at it. Uh, it was a great year for competition, great year for the World Juniors, and honestly, one of my favorites that I remember in the past, couple years that I've been really following the competitions.
Hmm.
Definitely cool to see. I think U.S. and Canada, kind of two like pillars of international hockey, sort of falling to the wayside this year. I always think it's fun when there's a switch up in the guard. So it was, yeah, I really enjoyed watching it, and there are a lot of names to keep your eyes on throughout the tournament too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Mike, I'll throw our first question to you here about a Blues prospect who was claimed in the 2025 draft. It's Luve Harenstam. He's the goalie that the Blues took in last year's draft, and he had a great tournament. He earned recognition from the IIHF as the top goalie of the tournament. He played 6 games. I think that was the second most. He had a 911 save percentage according to Quant Hockey. So like great performance from him. A 243 goals allowed average. He had the most saves in the tournament at 153. And he faced the third most shots on goal at 168. So he came under fire a lot, and he rose to the occasion. So thoughts on his performance in this tournament, in the final last night as well, and how high his ceiling could be for the Blues and their system.
Yeah, and you can't forget the fact that he went 6-0 here in all of his starts. And I believe his 911 here or so save percentage that you alluded to, I believe that was second highest in the entire tournament here as well. Yeah. So really some great stuff here shown from him. He's taken a large leap so far here, like in his progression here already. He's playing in the second tier Swedish league here. I will not try to pronounce this here, but I'm just going to embarrass myself. Hockey Allsvenskan. That's close enough. Sorry, guys.
Perfect.
This is a guy who is 8-11 with a 1.90 and a 918 save percentage. Mm-hmm. How he's 8-11 is just beyond me here in 26 games. So I loved his performance here in Sweden, but like you said, Alec, Sweden's a very strong team. Very, very strong team. And so it definitely helps having a strong team in front of you. But he at times had to be able to make some just excellent saves. I love everything that we're seeing from him. I think that the Blues got a great value draft pick here from Luve. Where that's going to project to here still is a little bit yet to be seen. Some of these goaltenders here are always a bit harder to be able to project. Based on my estimations here, I think that he could be able to challenge to come over to North America here in the next couple of seasons and probably top out as a pretty good backup goaltender. I still would like to be able to see a little bit more technicality, like a little bit more like of his technical work. He's decent in the high danger area, but again, with him being only I want to make sure he hasn't turned 20 here just yet. No, he's still 18. So okay. So again, 18 years old, and he's already playing in that second tier league. I really like this trajectory here for him here right now. Again, he's got to be able to get, I think his high danger area just a little bit more under control, but playing essentially like the AHL equivalent over in Sweden, that's at 18 years old. I'm good with you surrendering some high danger areas, especially with those stats lines that we're seeing here from him this year.
Yeah, and it'd be great, even if he does end up being a sort of backup and that's his ceiling, it could still, be a good situation for the Blues, who obviously just lost Colton Ellis on waivers earlier this season. So to sort of be able to recoup some value in their system in that would be great. But yeah, like you said, super young, goalie development takes a long time, but good to see such a good performance from him already.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
I think we should kick it to Adam Jiricek now, who I'm personally really excited about in his performance in this tournament. Czechia obviously wins silver. Adam Jiricek has 7, plays 7 games and has 6 points. So he had 5 goals, which I think was tied for the most from a defenseman with Zane Perek, and he adds on 1 assist for 6 points. but he had 2 game-winning goals, and he also earned recognition from the IHF as a top defenseman uh, in in um, in the tournament as the top defenseman. I think they place a lot of value on being in that final. I think otherwise Zane Perrick would probably take home that honor. But there's no doubt that Adam Jiricek had a fantastic tournament. So, Alec, thoughts? I'll ask you your thoughts on his performance, and then defer to you for a question for Mike.
Sure. I absolutely loved what we've seen from Jiricek, not just in the tournament, like on the year as a whole, but getting into his performance in the World Juniors, as you said. Um, going almost point per game in I guess average length tournament is nothing to sneeze at for sure, especially for a defenseman, and especially scoring the way that he did. I mean, just putting up some truly highlight reel goals
Yeah.
in the tournament. So to me, it's displaying what I'm taking away most from Jiricek's performance in the tournament is his confidence, and his confidence with the puck on his stick and without the puck on his stick. The way that you watch him read the ice, and especially the way that he is like perhaps like a Colton Parayko, although I don't think they play similar really at all, but the same idea of not being afraid to get up and get dirty in the play, and play close to the goal crease, uh, is a not typically how you have your defenseman, like the prototypical NHL defenseman. I don't think does such, but so perhaps this is at the time we called it a home run swing, and perhaps this really is just a very creative young skater who has a special goal scoring ability on the back end. I don't think I've seen enough from just this tournament to say that just yet, but I do think that he showed to me a level of confidence that should translate to all aspects of his game, in his practice, in his taking on games with Brantford, and how he goes about his day-to-day stuff. Like he can take all of that with this level of confidence now, earning the silver medal, competing at a high level, competing for his country. And it's developing a lot of the intangibles, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Was what I saw from this performance, on top of some really just beautiful goals. Uh, that you always love, when your prospect is the one that makes the national highlights.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pride in that. But I think with Jiricek, I am very expectantly and excitedly awaiting the rest of his season.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah, and I guess I can take it here. So my question for you: do you think that there was a case with the production he made as a defenseman and how far Team Chechnya went? Do you think there's a case for Jiricek to be an MVP of the tournament as a whole?
So he's not going to be named MVP here of the tournament. I believe that they named it here already. It was a forward, like fellow countryman here of his. I'm blanking
Mhm.
here off the name, but I'm sure that he ended up getting votes and some recognition here for that, especially being named top defenseman here of the entire tournament. That's exactly what the Blues here were hoping for. That's exactly what Jiricek, I think his original trajectory here was going to end up being, especially before that brutal knee injury, before some um, lapses here. I believe, like in his recovery, this is the defenseman that the Blues were hoping to be able to end up seeing. And so, if he was not obviously named our player in an MVP here of the tournament, him being at least named top defenseman of the entire tournament, sorry, we'll take that consolation prize.
Not a bad consolation prize. I think, I guess it is kind of subjectively speaking. Um, I think, like, in my own head, if I were to pick an MVP, just his performance in big moments, like Alec was talking about, and those 2 game-winning goals that I mentioned, Just some big performances in overtime and things like that. I think to me, he does have a case to be one of if not the most valuable players in the tournament, and then also just the way he led his team and the result that he helped lead them to. But yeah, great performance from him and some of his teammates both on defense and some forwards as well. So yeah, exciting to see him come through in some best on best for that age group. So we've covered the gold medal winner. We've covered the silver medal winner. Canada is the team that earned bronze, and I think that surprised a lot of people. I think most people would have expected them to at least be in the final and then at least earn silver. They were just loaded with some, some high end talent. You've got Michael Misa on that team, Gavin McKenna, Porter Martone, a lot of guys who were former first or second round picks, but also guys who will probably be high level picks in this upcoming draft. So I think bronze is probably a disappointment for this team. And I think where I want to take the conversation next is just kind of, I mean, I don't think we really have, this isn't really the place to dissect what went wrong with this team, but thoughts on their decision, since we're a Blues podcast, thoughts on their decision to leave Justin Carbonneau off the roster. Was there anything maybe that he could have brought? Just thoughts on that decision and what it reflects for Team Canada and their prospect pool, I guess.
So I think hindsight's always 20/20, right?
Right.
You always want more goal scoring, you want better defense, you want better, whatever the situation may end up being here. They opted to leave Justin Carbonneau off the list, and so you're looking at his point totals and you're seeing, wow, this is a guy who has eclipsed 30 goals. He's second in goal scoring here in the QMJHL. I love what we're seeing offensively here from Justin Carbonneau, but I think that's where I'm really I'm not going to try and dog on him here at all, because that's not where I'm trying to go to with this. But there's the intangibles that he needs to work on. He needs to work here, and he even knows this. He needs to work here on his defensive side of the game, absolutely. And I think that's where Canada really, really worried about adding a player like Justin Carbonneau. They know his offensive game, and they look around the entire rest of their roster and they say, we should have our offense covered. We need to worry about what's going to happen here in our own end, what's going to happen in the neutral zone. We need to be able to worry about that end more times than not. And Justin Carbonneau is going to turn into, I think, a very good player. I don't know if he's going to be this all-star type level of an individual. He has been by far one of the best and most productive forwards here in the Blues system. But again, it's the underlying numbers, it's the underlying things that he needs to be able to do here on the defensive side. I think that really needs to really continue to work here shift to shift.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, there's no question, and we're well aware about his hockey sense, right? Kind of being below average. Whereas, he's just got a good shot, he's got good compete, those kinds of things. He's a bit of a skiller as well. There's a lot that he does well, but as you said, there are definite reasons he was left off. So I think what I would hope for him moving forward is that this can be a bit of a motivator, a bit of a lesson of the areas of his game that he might need to fine tune a little bit. I think this segues us nicely into, into our next segment, where we'll talk about the regular seasons that some of these Blues prospects are having. And so with Carbonneau, as you mentioned, he is kind of lighting the lamp quite a bit in the QMJHL. In 32 games played, he's got 30 goals. He's second in the Q in goals scored. Second to, I'm not going to even try to pronounce his name, but he has 31 goals in 4 more games. So if you look at goals per game, Justin Carbonneau is the leader in the Q. He's also tacked on 15 assists for 45 points. So, he went back to the Q, a bit of a decision that was, I don't know if controversial is the right word, but I think I would have personally preferred him to go to the NCAA, see what he could do there. But he went back to the Q and is continuing to dominate there. So thoughts on his regular season? Any additional thoughts from either of you on the season he's having, and then sort of the ceiling and you know, how high he could reach, but also some of the things he needs to work on. Mike, I know you just mentioned a few, but just to sort of round out our discussion on Carbonneau, thoughts on his season so far?
Alec, if you got any points here, floor is yours here as well.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been, to me, I think it's been as we expected it to be, which has been dominant in a um, maybe less competitive league. But he hasn't been necessarily like he hasn't been falling behind at all, and he is showing, you know, a lot of the high end talent that we saw in his draft year too, that led him to being such a high draft pick for the Blues. Well, I guess not as high as he should have been probably, but I think Carbo. I mean, I agree with your point, Mike, that I think the end to end sort of puck carrier stuff that is not as refined as a lot of the rest of how Carbonneau plays the game. And I think also that his season so far hasn't shown the development to come just yet. I think he's still leaning into being just an offensive weapon. Um, but you know, maybe there is another step coming. He is still a very, very young prospect, so there is still kind of a caveat to this whole discussion of it could take some time, just because that's normal. Um, but I think the season he's been having has been exactly or about what I expected, and that's good. I would say he's on track.
Yeah, no, and I absolutely agree. This is a guy who, again, looking off at some of the different metrics that I got here for him, he's averaging about 21 minutes of ice time here per night, just shy here of 1 goal here per game, 1.4 points here per game here as well. What I love is the fact of like how many shots he's putting on goal here per game. He's averaging 10 shots on goal here per game. Like those are video game type numbers. But I do love the fact that he's also blocking shots. He's blocking on average 2.1 shots here per game. And for those advanced analytics nerds here, you know, along with this, he's also got a 58% Corsi 4 percentage here as well. So again, he's doing a lot of really good things. But as I was diving a little bit deeper again, like into some of his more analytics, he's doing a good job of mopping up things here in the offensive zone. He's doing a good job of being the person who's putting the puck here into the net, but he's also not the person who's necessarily driving the play. And so that's what I really wanted to see a little bit more here from him. And again, you got to love your finishers. You need those here on your team. And I hope I'm not going a little bit far, but he could be a refined version here of a Justin Carbonneau. I'm sorry, of a Jordan Kyrou, where Jordan Kyrou is a really good goal scorer. But again, he needed to work here on his defense. He's not the complete full-blown play driver like we necessarily want to see here from him. And so again, hopefully he can be able to change those things. And maybe the Blues will have seen what they did with Jordan Kyrou and say, okay, we should have done this. We should have done this. And so maybe that's where they can be able to work here on Justin Carbonneau's game and be able to start really working a little bit more and more here on his gameplay. I do agree. I do wish that he had gone here to the NCAA, because I think that's where it would have forced him to work harder here on his defense, force him to work here on other areas and aspects here of his game, because sorry, NCAA is just a better league than the QMJHL. I understand his loyalty to the Q. I completely get it. He wants to be able to win, and I think that they stand a really good chance to win the entire thing here when it's all said and done. So for him to be able to go on a championship run, whereas in the NCAA, he may have had a chance to go to the playoffs, he may have had a chance to go and win the entire championships, who knows? With his team here right now, the Armada stand a very good chance, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with saying, guys, we're going to do this here one more time, and we're going to be able to try to lift up that trophy. So, again, I'm really liking what I'm seeing here from him, but for him to potentially be like that top line guy, maybe. I just think that he's maybe a little bit more closer here, like when it's all said and done, to a Jordan Kyrou than maybe like a Jimmy Snuggerud here at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's well put. there's no doubt in my mind that he's just figured out the Q, in 23-24, 31 goals, 59 points. The next season, which was last season, 24-25, 46 goals, 89 points. He's on pace right now, I think, for around 56 goals and 84 points. So, he's figured out how to score, how to get it done. He's currently on pace for fewer assists than last year by quite a wide margin. So as you said, maybe some of that playmaking is an area for him to focus on in addition to the defense. So on the defensive side of things, we've seen Jordan Kyrou sort of come along in the past couple of seasons in that regard, and so maybe the Blues can learn some of those lessons, as you said, pass those along to Justin Carbonneau. He just feels like the type of guy to me that should be able to use his speed and his physicality to play that defensive style of hockey, kind of like we've seen from Dylan Holloway, but also to be able to create plays sort of with his body, a little bit different from the way that, say, a Robert Thomas is a playmaker, kind of have his own brand of playmaking. So I agree. I think that would be great to see him come along in those regards. And I think next year is definitely the time for him to step out of his comfort zone, try a new league, try some new competition, and see how that challenge sort of encourages him to grow in those respects.
Agreed. Yeah. If we don't see him move his way out of the QMJHL, I think something's wrong. Something's wrong here somewhere. Like he needs to be able to step his way into the AHL. I think he's like you just said, he's way too good here for the Q. He's figured it out. He knows these goalies. He knows play styles. Getting him into something that's making him a little more uncomfortable. I always tell people all the time, if you want to be able to see growth, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Just how it is.
For sure. Yeah, that's well put. Our next guy is let's go back to Adam Jiricek, who is having also a pretty productive year. He's in the OHL, of course, with Brantford. He's the top defenseman on that team. He's in 25 games. He's got 10 goals and 19 assists. Alec, what are your thoughts on the season he's having right now in the OHL? I mean, I think when we talked prospects before the season started, I think what we talked about with Jiricek is that we just wanted to see him stay healthy. And we wanted to see sort of flashes of the player that earned him a sort of first half of the first round draft pick, right? That was sort of what we were talking about. We want to see those flashes, and we want him to stay healthy, get it done consistently. What are your thoughts on the season he's having for Brantford right now in the OHL? Because I feel pretty pleased, to be honest.
Yeah, totally. I agree. It's been, what we talked about with Check was you wanted to see consistency, you wanted to see playing time, and just to get out there. And I mean, not only has he gone out there, he's over a point per game as a defenseman, which is playing in the OHL, but it's a good pace to be on.
Mm-hmm.
And he's scoring goals too. If you look at the Bulldogs by goals, he's actually, let's see, seventh, again, as a defenseman, and he is actually the top defenseman on the team. So what you're seeing with Jiricek is maybe a little bit, perhaps this is me projecting a little bit, maybe a little bit more of a leader on the defense. Maybe a little bit more of someone who likes to have the puck on his stick and sort of lead by example, because that dynamism was really on display, I think, in this past tournament in the World Juniors. And I think this season too has been just a bigger part of his game, that he's able to play with such confidence. And I think to me, that translates to a lot of off ice intangible stuff like leadership, which is why I make that claim. But I don't know. I find his season to be compelling and great evidence to the positive for Jiricek at this point in his development. Um, but I still acknowledge with him, there's still, I don't know that he's ready to just come up to St. Louis per se. Like, even though he's having a good season, so I'm looking for that continued development out of him. But it's been very promising so far.
For sure.
Nope, and I totally agree. Your point here before I get like into his OHL stuff, everybody wants to be able to get Jiricek up here. Okay, where are you going to put him? Because you're going to have to end up moving out probably Justin Falk, which is more like a foregone conclusion here at this point. That he's having a really great really great season, and I think it's one that the Blues could have done no more, and said, "Hey, have a good season, so we can be able to help build up your value." He's gone out there and done that. Like, he's leading the Blues here, I believe, in goals scored. So, yeah. Other than that, like, okay, so are you going to put Jiricek in a top 4 position? Are you ready to elevate Logan Mailloux here into a top 4 position? Because you have to be able to end up raising and elevating here the depth chart, because Adam Jiricek, I think, is banging on that doorstep. I think that he's going to end up taking a quick lapse here over to the AHL here up in Springfield here first. They'll get a good chance to see him grow and develop there. But talking here just about his AHL, or his OHL season, I'm absolutely loving what we're seeing here from him. He is probably my biggest riser, maybe outside of Kuroki, here over in the KHL here, like this season. I'm loving his mobility. I'm loving his play driving. He, again, his mobility has just improved, and his puck moving, it just seems so much more confident. He's playing with real, true assertiveness here as a defenseman. I think he's finally trusting his body. He's finally realizing that he's healthy, and he just looks like himself again. When he's on the ice, his team is simply just controlling the puck more. They seem like they're more comfortable. They're confident. They're controlled. And he's giving them real chances out there. Jiricek is defending with posture, with timing. He's reducing the chaos here in his game, and he's just looking like the true, legitimate top 4 NHL defenseman I think that everybody was hoping was going to come here from him when the Blues drafted him. Not only that, but he is also blocking anywhere from 1 to 2 pucks here per game. He is throwing about 5 shots here per game, which I absolutely love. But the thing that I love here also is that he is a minute munching defenseman, chewing up 23 minutes here in the OHL here every single night. So I love the offensive side of his game, but boy, you sometimes just need those minute munchers that can be able to go out there and just play a very sound defensive game. We saw it. I don't know if you guys saw this here online last night, but it was also stated that a good comparison here to him, and not to try and be able to put ourselves here ahead, but Alex Pietrangelo. Yeah, if we could potentially get Alex Pietrangelo, Andy Strickland made this comment, and I was like, you know what? I don't disagree.
There's something there. You don't want to put too much pressure, like you said, on these guys too early, but it's hard not to get excited when he's lighting it up like he is. He's on track for the best season of his young career. 22 goals, 43 assists, I think, is what he's currently pacing for. And the OHL is still pretty decent competition. It's one of the premier young leagues out there, and so if he can wind up taking that top 4 spot from that currently belongs to Justin Falk at some point over the next few years, that would be nothing short of incredible for the Blues and how snake bitten they've been with drafting defensemen. I'm personally really excited for the chance at a Broberg-Jiricek pairing. I think that would be a lot of fun to watch.
That would be fun. We could also see a very potential career trajectory here. I'm trying not to really get those words mixed up here from Jiricek, of like what we saw maybe in a Colton Parayko, where people had high expectations maybe from Parayko, but they may have not been like top pairing. And all of a sudden, you're seeing Colton Parayko as your premier number 1 defenseman here on your squad. Granted, he's a little bit more here of a shutdown, but last year we saw the offense really, really shine. And so maybe that's where you end up seeing something here like an Adam Jiricek here over time become, okay, he's that third pairing defenseman as he works his way in. Great. Colton Parayko. We see him start to be able to really work here and shine here on the penalty kill. Colton Parayko. We see him get some power play time. Colton Parayko. We see him rise up in the ranks here on the defensive charts. Colton Parayko. So again, You don't necessarily know what the future is going to lay out here for him here in the future. But again, if you want to be able to compare it here to current Blues, Parayko and or Pietrangelo here, I don't think are terrible comps.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely worse players to be compared to. So that's super exciting. And to that point, just to add a couple stats here as a tag on Adam Jiricek. Second on his team on Brantford in power play goals with 5, and second in assists with 12 on the power play. So he's getting it done on special teams, like you said. And to see him come along on both sides of the puck and to Alex's point, look confident doing it. I'm just really excited about this player.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, let's move it along to the AHL guys. This is kind of an open question for you, Mike. What are some of your thoughts on the players for the Blues in Springfield? You know, Matt Luff has 23 points. Pekarchik has 15. Alexandrov has 14. Which players have stood out to you so far this season down in the AHL?
I think one of the biggest ones that's surprised me here so far was Juraj Pekarchik. I didn't necessarily I knew that there was going to be some transition time frame here for him, but he is looking every bit of the middle six playmaker I think that the Blues are kind of envisioning him to be able to be. The points aren't there here just as of yet. He's got 5 goals, 10 assists, 15 points here in 29 games. There's that really stark -11 here right now for him. But, you know, Springfield here in general, much like the Blues, were struggling for quite a bit here of their season. They're finally starting to be able to turn things around. Pekarchik be able to get anywhere from that second or third line pairing minutes and be able to get some power play time here as well. But I'm just loving his strong slot pass ability. Primary shot assist numbers here are way up. And I just think that he's one of the smartest playmakers here right now in the system. I love his vision. I love his timing. And I think that it's all NHL ready here right now. I think that, again, he, much like everybody else that's in the system, they just need to continue to work here on their defensive side of the game. But he's doing a great job of helping them to find some time and manipulate these defenders to be able to end up just biting here a little bit, and then he's just going to create the extra time and space for them, which for a lot of players, I think is a huge limiting factor here for them. But his ability to just create offense without elite speed is massive here for him. I'm still seeing him again as a middle six type of a player, maybe with some really good power play too, offensive upsides. But I think he is the one who's really stood out outside of maybe an Otto Stenberg, whenever he was down there, Kaskiamaki, Dylan Peterson. I could keep going on here with some of these guys.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of where we want to take the discussion next, is to talk about some of the players that have seen some, pockets of time this year. It's been obviously well chronicled how much of a struggle bus the Blues have been on this season. But as such, there has been opportunity, as sort of a youth movement usually coincides with that. And we want to get your thoughts on less about Springfield, but more about the players that came from Springfield to try their hand at NHL level. So you can take this, however you want, with Matt Luff, Alexandrov, Kaskamaki, who's seen some play, wherever you want to go. But how have these players contributed to the St. Louis level, and not just how they contributed, but what do you see in them in their futures as Blues, or as potential depth pieces on the roster that, with the re-signing of a guy like Toropchenko, those spots are quickly filling. So could we see perhaps more of them, or was this more of just a trial run, you think, for to see who could fill in behind them?
Yeah, and so this is where it gets really interesting, because Armstrong came out here quite a while ago stating, we've got all these puzzle pieces, but all the puzzle pieces are not going to be ultimately end up not necessarily needed, but they're not going to end up making the final puzzle here for them. you mentioned about Matt Luff. Matt Luff here is a very, very good AHL player. He's one of their top scorers. He's one of their top point producers. He's one of their top go-to guys. And I think he's a true difference maker here for the Springfield Thunderbirds. Unfortunately, he's not an NHL guy. He's just not. He's gotten a cup of coffee here up in St. Louis. But I just think that's really going to be about it for him. For notes here for you guys, for the viewers and listeners, Alexandrov here was traded just about a month here or so ago, maybe a little bit longer. Alexandrov, pure speculation. I need to be able to disclose that. Pure speculation. I think he got very frustrated because he was putting up all the points here in the AHL, but never really got the full-blown chance here in the NHL. And I think that really caused a bit of a rift here between him, Springfield, and maybe even the St. Louis organization here in general, to the point where he may have requested a trade. And I think that's what facilitated this. And that's why Akil Thomas, who is currently, I believe, injured and has yet to actually play for Springfield here just at this point in time. I think that's why Alexandrov was shipped out. I have guys here in Springfield who are telling me, that he just looked checked out. He looked lazy here on the ice. And if you're not really getting that chance, you're doing everything here possible, but you don't get that raise, you don't get that promotion, you don't get that next opportunity. It's really, really hard to find motivation of why am I doing this here for you guys? Because if you're not going to find a spot for me, I'm going to go to somebody else who will find a spot for me. He has yet to be able to find the NHL here. The last I looked here, at least in with the Los Angeles organization. So I'm hoping here for the best for him, because I think that he is a player who does deserve a lot of chances and a lot of opportunities, but this is going to be able to provide a ton of chances and a ton of opportunities here, not just for Juraj Pekarczyk, but, a physical player here like a Dylan Peterson, who is not going to be a guy who's going to light the lamp, but he's going to be a guy who, almost like a David Backes, is going to be willing to be able to lay the body. He's going to be able to put the puck in the back of the net here if and when needed. He's got 6 goals here in 23 games. Again, not going to light any world here on fire, but 13 points in 26 games here just as a physical player, definitely not a bad deal. Otto Stenberg, when he was down in Springfield, was looking really good. 3 goals, 13 points here in 30 games. He was getting his chances, getting his opportunities, but I love the fact, I'm sorry, here I was looking here at his overall totals. Let me change that. He was getting his chances, he was getting his opportunities, but sometimes, the points just don't translate. He had 8 points in 21 games here in his first full AHL season. He was going to take a little bit of a regression here in his point totals, but that's a bit of that sophomore slump that's kind of coming here for him. Somebody else that I really wanted to be able to see, but I really haven't seen enough from him to say that it's going to knock him down maybe from a top 4 projection. But I did want to be able to see a little bit more in a step forward here from him was Theo Lindstein. He's been a guy who point totals are not going to be a huge calling card here for him, but I was really hoping for a little bit more here from him other than like a -15. His first season here in North America has not been the greatest. We're talking about a 20-year-old who was previously playing in Swedish top league here in the SHL. 9 points in 44 games, +9. Super, super solid stats. He had 4 points in 7 games here in the World Juniors here last year, comes over to North America, and it just seems like he's having a hard time maybe getting a good rhythm, a good groove here right now. Again, it's a smaller ice, and so it just maybe taking a little bit longer for him right now. I'm still really liking some of the underlying metrics that we're seeing from him. He's still really good at his play driving. He's still really good and controlled here in his own zone. I don't know if it's the defensive pairings. I don't know if it's the scheme. I don't know if it's whatever that it is. Call it, it's his rookie AHL season. And maybe we're just putting a little bit too much ahead of him and giving him too much. But I am still projecting him to be a top 4 defenseman here for the Blues. Maybe here, he could be able to play power play too, but also be able to play here on the penalty kill. 2 more guys here for you. Simone Robertson. If he's not falling here off of my list, I don't know what else this guy's going to end up doing. There's a chance that he could still become a bottom 6 forward here in the NHL, but at 24 24 years old, 22, sorry, 22 years old. He can't stay healthy. He can't stay healthy. 26 games here last year. He's gotten only 19 here so far this year, -6 and 3 points. I don't see it. He's just having a very, very hard time. And I think that there's going to be other forwards who are going to be very quickly working their way up that depth chart that Simone Robertson is going to end up being passed over. And then I'll wrap this up here. Vadim Zirenko. This guy has been extremely streaky his entire time that he has been here. But when you've got guys that you've had like Malcolm Subban, you've had Colton Ellis, you've had he's had one or two other guys here. I'm just blanking here on their names, all in front of him, all vying here for time. He's been a 3+, almost 3.5 goals against average type of a goaltender here with Springfield. And for me, he's fallen down the depth chart. Now, this season, he's really turning it around because he's been playing some very, very hard minutes ever since Colton Ellis here was claimed off of waivers here by the Buffalo Sabres. He has been outside of Georgi Romanov, who came from ultimately the San Jose organization. He has looked really, really the part. You know, a 7-7-4 record doesn't really do him any bit of justice. You want to look more towards that 912 save percentage, that 2.89 goals against average. Could even be a little bit lower if it's not for the number of times and the number of saves that he's had to be able to make. Just this past week, 2 goals allowed here on 34 shots, 2 goals allowed here on 42 shots, 1 goal allowed here on 30, 1 on 24, 1 on 46. So they are this system and this structure is allowing a lot of pucks to be funneled here, especially Zirenko's way, and he is doing his darndest to be able to just block every single one of these. So when you see that a goaltender is getting 30, 40, maybe even approaching 50 shots a night, and Zirenko's only allowing 2, maybe 3 a night, that's a lot more telling here for me for a goaltender that could flirt here with a backup potential. Maybe not in the Blues organization. That may become one where they see we've got Jordan Binnington here for however much longer that he may here be with the Blues. You've also got Joel Hofer that's going to be in there. I don't know if he's going to be able to end up, if Zirenko's going to work his way up here to be Hofer and Zirenko here again, just in the NHL level though.
Yeah, it's a tough tandem to crack right now, but it is definitely exciting to see him sort of live up to the role, live up to the moment with Colton Ellis being shipped out, as you said. So yeah. In the interest of time, I want to move it along to our final topic, which is just moving on up the levels here to the NHL. We've seen, as Alec mentioned, a few different AHL guys rather get some time in the NHL, but more importantly, I think to the long-term outlook of the Blues at the NHL level, we've seen Dvorsky get a very extended look up in St. Louis. He's kind of just an NHLer now, at least for this season. It seems like in 33 games, he's got 6 goals and 3 assists. Jimmy Snuggerud was a call up last year. I don't think he's really super in the prospect territory still at this point, but 31 games played and 6 goals, 7 assists. He really looks the part of an NHLer, and Alec has waxed poetic about Snuggerud a lot of times on here, with good reason. He does seem to take control of the game quite a bit. And then we've got Otto Stenberg being called up more recently. As you mentioned, in 9 games played, he's got 5 assists. I've been personally really impressed with Stenberg, and I think what impresses me most about him, and we talked about this on our last episode, Alec and I did, it seems like in high pressure moments where a quick decision is required, right? Whether it's right in front of the net or a board battle or something like that, it seems like he is a pretty good decision maker. And it feels like his sort of decision-making capability is pretty mature for a guy his age. He seems to make a lot of high pressure passes in the slot or through the slot. He seems to be really willing to go in on those board battles. And what I mentioned in our last discussion, Alec, was that for a guy that sort of seemed to struggle against mature players over in the SHL, which is an adult league, It doesn't seem like he's having a lot of those same issues right now. So thoughts from either of you on, we can start with Alec first, I guess, and then go to Mike. Thoughts on Otto Stenberg's season in the NHL so far this season? Because it's, he's probably going to be a middle sixer for this team before too long. So yeah, thoughts on Stenberg.
Yeah, I think he has looked the part of a middle sixer, especially in his first NHL action. I think that's a really huge deal. You see the way that he, like you said, has a good, I guess, head on his shoulders about what to do with the puck when he has it, and doesn't seem to make a lot of other like mental mistakes. It's a very, very, I feel like, safe prospect evaluation, that I don't necessarily think Stenberg has the upside to be, even like his brother. But I think on the whole, he's a high-ish floor, maybe like medium floor um, level player who should be able to contribute to this Blues team, and should be able to contribute sooner than later, because he looked, comfortable-ish at the NHL level for his age. So I would say Stenberg is kind of like I've been saying, either on track or a little bit ahead of track, maybe.
Yep, and I completely agree here with you, Alec. He's taken just a real step towards becoming a potential top six forward. Um, I always wondered, looking at some of his game film here in Springfield, was the talent around him good enough for him to be able to play with? Because it seemed like at times he was trying to make plays and they weren't happening, and I was like, he's maybe a step ahead of where some of these other guys are at, and so he has to almost overcompensate because of his line mates. And that's not a knock on these guys that he's playing with here at all, but you see sometimes the plays that he's making at the NHL level with a Robert Thomas, with a Pavel Buchnevich, who sees the game maybe at his speed and sees where he wants them to go, and he's connecting. And so maybe this is where, like, Otto Stenberg does flirt here with a chance to go to start next season in the NHL. I don't think that's out of the realm here of possibility. He's consistently getting to dangerous ice. He's consistently generating high quality chances. He's getting the trust here at 3-on-3 and on the penalty kill, and even a little bit. I think a little bit of power play time. The last year I looked at it, in my opinion, he's added every bit of the defensive detail that you want to be able to see from him, especially at 20 years old. And his underlying numbers here right now are just starting to match this eye test. He's tilting the ice every single night. He looks every bit of the modern pace driving top six winger. And I think that's where, again, he's not going to be the primary line driver here for a squad, or maybe, like the goal scorer here at this point. But I think that as he continues along, his ability and his on ice vision is what's going to potentially earn him top line minutes. Power play 2, maybe in the event of injuries, flirt with a power play 1. Definitely some penalty killing times. I think that the comp here to an Alexander Steen that has been long mentioned here for him at this point in time, I think that that's absolutely the case of a player that we could see here from an Otto Stenberg. I just think that he's going to do everything remotely possible and in his power and control to be able to make sure that the Blues have a very hard time of sending him back to Springfield.
It's a really interesting assessment, especially about the quality of teammates in the AHL maybe not quite being his speed. I wonder if this, I mean, this is a little bit of a conversation for another time. I wonder if there's something similar happening with Theo Lindstein, both making the jump from the SHL in a league where players are a little bit better, a little more mature. But yeah, super. And I think we've seen something similar with Jimmy Snuggerud at the NHL level. In terms of the playmaking, Alec and I were both a little bit pleasantly surprised about Jimmy Snuggerud's playmaking ability. And, to see Otto Stenberg take that jump as well is super exciting. And if the quality of teammates can elevate that, then that's even better. So, yeah, that's exciting to see.
Likewise. Yeah, this is it's an interesting time because all of these NHL veterans who are maybe not performing here up to snuff, they're starting to see some of these younger guys who are trying to be able to get a whiff here of that time in the NHL, and they're already showing that they belong. Maybe not in the top 6 role here just as of yet. That's left out here for some of the exclusive talent. But again, Theo Lindstein I think is going to be able to start really working his way here towards that. Otto Stenberg here is already doing that. Jimmy Snuggard here is already doing that. Justin Carbonneau is going to do that here at this point. And so I think some of this, the early returns here on these first round draft picks are really already starting to be able to play dividend or to be able to pay dividends.
Awesome. Okay, a couple more guys, and then I've got one sort of wrap up question for both of you. But before we get there, let's get both of y'all's thoughts on Dalibor Dvorsky, who had a bit of a hot start whenever he was called up, but has cooled off a little and isn't quite putting up the point and goal totals that he was at first. He's got 6 goals and 3 assists in 33 games. He also had, I mean, of his 6 goals, I think 4 have come on the power play. So he has been kind of that power play threat at times that a lot of us expected. So thoughts on him in the NHL and reasons why he's maybe cooled off a little bit and what he has to work on a little bit. We can start with you, Mike, and then go back to Alex, sort of work backwards this time.
Yeah, he's a guy who I was out at Buffalo Wild Wings, here a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about Dvorsky and how, he really hasn't done much here offensively, and does he warrant another send back here to Springfield? And I think as much as you want to be able to see him producing offensively and producing here at 5-on-5, I think he's done enough, at least defensively, that can warrant that third line role here for him, especially here as a rookie. I think that he's doing a really good job supporting down low. He's winning the small area battles. And I think that he's doing a really great job here of reading pressure here, just like a pro. I think his offensive game here is and will continue to take a step forward. You're seeing the shots go off. You're seeing the ability. You're seeing, you're just not seeing the red light. That's the only thing that you're really not seeing here from him. And that, I think, is going to come with time. This is the NHL. It's the best league here in the entire world. And we're talking about how a guy may or may not be producing here, at 20, 21, 22 years old. Like, give these guys some time and some room to grow and some room to be able to breathe. So I think he's still creating plenty of dangerous opportunities here, about to, not just for himself, but for his teammates. And he's looking not necessarily flashy, but he's looking just incredibly reliable. There's not really games that you're looking at this and saying, "Oh, Dvorsky, you turned that puck over," or "Oh, Dvorsky, you did this." A lot of times you're not even really seeing him. And that's okay. Again, 21, 22, at these young ages, I think if you're not seeing him make a lot of offensive contributions, and as long as you're not rolling your eyes and saying what a boneheaded play that was, he's doing his job here in the NHL.
Yeah. To add on to that, I think to me, Dvorsky is kind of at worst treading water, and at best, it's not a lot better, but maybe like about what you expect, or maybe slightly below expectations. But still, like, if that's your worst case scenario, is that, again, as such a young skater, that you're treading water and holding your own well enough. And like you said, the defense of his game and the puck control aspects of things, like Dvorsky in the faceoff dot has been kind of lethal. And watching him sort of develop the mental aspects of the game a lot quicker than I think the physical is a really interesting progression. But it feels like with him, it's all there. It just kind of has to practice. And he is not a fast skater. He is not much of a skater at all. But it still doesn't hold him back from, making a terrific pass in the offensive zone that he's shown that he's capable of. It's just picking the right moments when to do something like that. I think that he could take another step or two. But I do believe that Dvorsky has been, at worst, treading water, which is a very good place to be for a very young skater.
Well said, gentlemen. All right, last specific player I'll ask both of you about, and then we'll move on to our final question. Is Jonathan Berggren is a guy that I think maybe you would have thought I was going to say Jamie Snuggerud, but I think we've talked a lot about him, and I don't think he's a prospect anymore. Maybe Berggren isn't either, but since he's new, since he's fresh blood here in St. Louis, this is a guy that intrigues me. I know that Alec, you and I have talked about him a lot recently. I'm maybe a little bit more excited about him than you are. Or maybe I think, Alec, sort of what you have said in the past is just you don't expect him to retain this role necessarily as time goes on. Maybe you see him more as a trade piece for the Blues. I'm a little bit more interested in keeping him around, I think. So he's a former second round draft pick in 2018 by the Detroit Red Wings. And I think he was just barely a second round draft pick. I think he was 33rd overall. And so, he has had a bit of an immediate impact in St. Louis. In 8 games played, he's got 3 goals and 2 assists. And so his first few games were pretty good performances out of Berggren. So I think he fits the age range that Doug Armstrong and the Blues are kind of looking to prioritize. NHL ready young guys. We can't go after more 30-year-old players. And for that matter, maybe we can't even go after, we can't, keep acquiring 28-year-old guys or people like that, because if you're trying to retool and rebuild or whatever the word is, if you keep acquiring older assets, your window's never going to align correctly. So I think what they're looking for is guys in this age range. And Berggren is better than an AHL player. He's definitely an NHLer. I see him as a bit of a valuable potential asset for the Blues. I'm really intrigued by this guy. So that's my case for why I'm excited about him. Alec, give me your thoughts on Berggren, and then Mike, curious to hear your reaction to our different takes on him.
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a nice job of summing it up there. That I think Berggren is a nice piece to have right now, but could maybe be more like a, good for a little bit and then kind of fizzles out type of addition to a team. And I think that's fine. Like, I think that's a fine role for him to fill as I want to say a veteran, because it really feels like normally this would be like a experienced veteran player, but it's really more of an AHL veteran. But with Berggren, I guess I would honestly be looking to squeeze as much value out of this roster as you can. So if you could trade away a guy like Berggren for anything, I think that would be kind of a masterclass. But if not, then at least like riding the hot hand and letting him play with, Robert Thomas as long as it works. But probably something that you're not expecting to anchor down the middle 6 for 2 years to come.
Yeah, and I definitely don't disagree with that. I mean, you're seeing a guy who, by all intents and purposes, should be able to hit 200 NHL games played this season, most of which was played here with the Detroit Red Wings. But at 1.83 million, he's a restricted free agent here as of after this season. I really, really like his offensive game. Boy, does this dude have a shot on him. I don't know. This is a really, really hard part, because I think like most of St. Louis is just like, I don't know, because you've got a lot of players who are going to be coming up and looking to take those spots, namely Justin Carbonneau. Again, like an in Otto Stenberg, a Kaskimaki, a Dylan Peterson. All these guys are looking to be able to take these spots who could be more reliable on that defensive side of the game than what a Berggren potentially brings to the ice. I don't mind his game, but I think he's kind of a one-trick pony. And I said this here on one of the STL Sports Central post games. Puck scoring is heck of a play, and that's a heck of a trick, and I really like that trick. But also, if you're taking shifts off, if you are just kind of going out there for a twirl and just making sure that you're not being a liability on the defensive side here of the puck, cool, that's great. I did my job. Did you? Did you? And so I don't mind it, but I don't see necessarily how at 25 years old here already where he really fits in long term, just looking at the grand scheme, the grand picture. Now, again, I hope that he continues to just work on his game, work on his consistency, work on the defensive side, but that's a lot of hope. That's a lot of hope here for him. And so I could see where the Blues, again, Alec, here to your point, squeeze every bit of value here out of him, and maybe you get something here out of him, at the trade deadline, and he just came to St. Louis for, a couple of toasted Rabs, and that's about it. But if he ends up just working his way, maybe getting, another 1 year, great. I don't think that the Blues should be in any rush to re-sign him. He hasn't done enough, in my opinion, but to warrant a re-signing. I don't necessarily know where he fits long term. Not necessarily like a Toropchenko, because Toropchenko I still think fits that mold here of that fourth line. Berggren can play here again that top six role. He can play as he has shown here with Buchnevich, with Robert Thomas, but again, he's going to get those really tough matchups. Can he be able to line up on those tough matchups game in and game out? I don't think so. And that's where I have a really, really hard time seeing where the long-term fit is for him.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. An intriguing name for sure, but still definitely a lot to work on, as you said. All right, just to wrap it up here, I've got one question to tie a bow on it. I'm not going to pretend like it's an easy question. But so this is the question. I think we should each take a turn and answer it. I'll go first to give you both some time to think, since I'm springing this on both of you. So
I'm worried now about this question.
The question is, who do you see as, and let's say of all of the 20 and under players, so take Jimmy Snuggerud out of it, take Philip Broberg, Dylan Holloway out of it, who do you see as the most important young player on the Blues or in the system? Now you can keep Dvorsky in there, you can keep Stenberg, Jiricek, all the prospects under, let's say 20 and under. You can take this whatever way you want. You can say it's the top guy, the most talented guy. You can take it the way of highest ceiling, whatever. Or you can take it the way I'm probably going to take it, and say that I think it's Adam Jiricek. I think what this team needs is a good defenseman. So I see him as the most important. He's the top defenseman in the system, and they've got an aging defense core. And so if he can young it up a little bit, but also be a responsible NHLer on both sides of the puck, I think that could be a godsend for the Blues. So he's my most important 20 and under player, but I could see a case for anyone else that we've talked about today.
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to agree with you and say Jiricek as well. And the reason is because the way I take this question is who would it really suck to lose? Like, who would you miss the most? If there was like an expansion draft or just a trade or something, and you don't get anything in return or nothing that's relevant to this, exercise.
Sure.
Who would it just like really suck to not have in your system anymore? And I think for me, it's got to be your next defensive prospect, because if Jiricek isn't in the system, it's Theo Lindstein and a prayer, and like that's not a good, especially with the aging core of the Blues already, their defensive core. That is a really hopeless situation. So I think for that reason, I would say our Czech defenseman, because he is not only does he have the upside to be like a number one or a top four kind of guy, which is huge, but more importantly, he if he stays healthy, he can play the position, at a pretty high level, regardless of deployment. And so as bad as I want to say Dvorsky, I think the Blues would have an ability to find centers like with some promise. I don't think it would be on the same level of Dvorsky. I'm a huge Dalibor Dvorsky fan, but I think you could find other centers and maybe try and, you could pivot by building up the wing core instead, or rebuilding the wing core instead. Um, Whereas with defensemen, it's kind of all or nothing. So I'm going to agree with you and say Adam Juchek.
Boy, you guys did not make this easy here on me doing this third. You did say 20 and under, and I had to just quickly refresh myself here on some of the ages here of some of these guys. And looking at some of these prospects, like you're just taking guys here just completely out of the list. Dylan Peterson's 23 years old. Zach Dean, who, thankfully worked his way back here from the player assistance program. Not just for the Blues' sake, but man, I'm just so incredibly happy you're able to see that story here from Zach Dean. I'm trying to work my way to be able to get a conversation with him. Obviously a little bit more difficult than what it may end up being. Matt Love's 28 years. Say it again.
Would it help if I rephrase the question for you? We could say NHLers have to be 20 and under. So Devo, and I think that's just sort of throwing Devo but eliminating Snuggerud. So NHLers under 20, and then any other prospect. Would that?
Okay, that makes things a little bit easier.
Okay.
I still would end up going here with Adam Jiricek. I think we're just going to go Jiricek here all across the board.
Clean sweep.
Tie.
Because, like you guys said, and Alec, I love the way that you phrased this, because you said, who is the player that would hurt the most to get rid of? And I'm scanning up and down, and I'm a guy who always likes to start from the goaltending position on out, and that's where I started with this. Zirenko would be, I think, the goaltender that you wouldn't necessarily want to get rid of here right now, because boy, if Hofer goes down, who the hell are you turning to at this point in time? Yeah. Romanov, maybe, like, he's looking fine. Cranley's still here in the in the ECHL. Theo Lindstein, like, yeah, he would really suck to be able to get rid of here at this point. Buschinger here, like, he looks fine, but none of the defensemen here outside of Jiricek look like that they're like those top players. Justin Carbonneau would suck to be able to get rid of. He absolutely would, but I think he's going to end up being more of a complementary piece. And again, the future is going to be really super important here for a player here like Justin Carbonneau. Can he be able to round out that game? Can he truly form himself here into a top line player? TBD here on that. Dylan Peterson, no. Bottom six again. Zach Dean, no. Juraj Pekarczyk, he would suck, because I think he's not going to be completely like a Nick Backstrom type of vision and like rack up all of those assists, but like an Andre Palat, where you're seeing here some really good offensive numbers, some really high offensive totals. I think that's where you see a Juraj Pekarczyk be able to come out of. But none of those guys really resonate here to me to the level that Adam Jiricek does. And so I think we have to go clear across the board, Adam Jiricek.
I'm glad we can agree on something, fellas. Thanks. Well put, both of you. I think that'll do it for us this time. So before we wrap up, Mike, why don't you tell all of our listeners and viewers one more time where they can find you and find your work?
Absolutely, guys. Here again, so STL Sports Central for all of the St. Louis sports coverage. I absolutely love this group of guys. Love the dedication. Love it. We do post games here every single night. We go live here on YouTube. If Twitter's your thing, feel free to follow me at @M_Meyer MEYER3. That's where most of my primary stuff here is. I'm trying really to get to other platforms, but time is not my friend. It's just not. And then, of course, if you guys are looking here for Blues prospect coverage, I'm also over there here on Substack over at Blue Notes Rising. Again, time is not my friend, and so I'm working to try and be able to get into more of a regular pattern here of posting more than just about every 3 days here for the Blues content. Some weeks you're only going to get like one newsletter, but other weeks, you're going to get 3, 4, maybe even 5 newsletters here. That's going to be flooding here with that notifications, the inbox, whatever that it is. I'm trying to be able to bring you guys the best Blues prospect coverage here as possible.
And it's fantastic prospect coverage. Mike, thanks for coming on. It's great to see you again, as always.
Likewise, guys. Yep. Always happy to be able to join you.
All right, so we'll link to Mike's Substack in the show notes, so be sure to check that and subscribe to that. It's great content. If you haven't already, we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel at Note News Pod. Like this video as well. Leave a comment on your thoughts on Blues prospects, World Juniors, anything that we've talked about today. And leave a comment. Give us your thoughts on who you see as the most important prospect or young player in the Blues system. Follow, rate, and review on Spotify and Apple as well. And follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod is where you can reach us and interact with us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. And as always, let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.